Good morning. Well, hopefully my microphone is now switched on. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. Welcome to day 2, and welcome to this session, which is entitled Archiving and the Community. Today's session will have 3 speakers. Now, hopefully the internet deities will smile upon us and all our connections will hold. But this is a salutary reminder that while we all live in a globalized, interconnected, etc., world, not everyone enjoys the same level of technological access. And this is just another issue for some archives to have to deal with. And the risk of being left behind in the digital world, much to the detriment of their communities. And unfortunately, it is also those archives that can least afford to keep out that lose out the most. And it's also the rest of the world loses out as well, as unique records about cultures are lost to all of us. Anyway, hopefully the internet will behave. Anyway, onto a more cheerful note. I think archiving is really about the community. It's a collective memory after all. And I remember one time visiting the National Archives of the Solomon Islands, and they had an archive song, and the chorus went along the lines of, "Archive me, archive you." And I really think that says it all. Anyway, enough of my chatter. We've got 3 really good speakers up today. And we'll start off with Klavier Ying Wang. She received her Masters of Philosophy and Ph.D. Communication Studies at Hong Kong Baptist University. And she is a researcher of East Asian film history and popular cultural industry. She's worked as a university researcher and lecturer and had closely worked with different archives. Striving to foster moving image heritage preservation in Asia, Klavier is awarded the Hong Kong Government Scholarship of Excellence scheme to pursue further studies at moving image archiving and preservation at New York University. At the MIAP course, the master's course, excuse me, now I've lost my place, had her internship at Special Collections in NYU Libraries Department of Film Digital Restoration Department, at Taiwan Film and Audiovisual Institute, and at La Mama Experimental Film Club Archive. So if the wizards at backstage can please connect us with Klavier's presentation, that would be fantastic. Thank you. Okay, on to our next speaker, Iyra. I'm sorry, I'm probably going to make a horrible mess of your surname. Iyra Buenrostro. Sorry.
Okay.
We'll be talking about From Keepers to Creators, Broadening the Archivist's Mission Through Education. And as a bit of background, Iyra is an Associate Professor at the School of Library and Information Studies, UPSLIS, at the Universities of the Philippines, Diliman, where she teaches LIS and archival studies courses, both in the undergraduate and graduate levels. She finished her PhD in Information Studies in 2019 from Wee Kim Wee School of Communication and Information at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. She has been and is currently involved in projects related to education and training of LIS educators, librarians, archivists, and record managers, establishment and management of record centres and archives, and preservation of historical records. Her research interests include the development of archival theory and practice, the politics of libraries and archives and their role in the formation of collective memory, the use, contextualization and preservation of archives such as photographic records and Filipina historical sources, and qualitative research methods in LIS. Iyra is also the current editor-in-chief of the Philippine Journal of Librarianship and Information Studies, formerly Journal of Philippine Librarianship, the first and longest running academic journal in LIS in the Philippines. Well, thank you and good morning in your time zone, I believe.
Yeah, good morning, Mick. Yeah,
please.
Thanks for the kind introduction.
Take it away.
All right. just share my screen. Okay. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thanks, Mick, for the kind introduction. It's actually Iyra Buenrostro. It's kind of difficult to really pronounce my name, but it's fine. So once again, I am Iyra, and I am a faculty member at the School of Library and Information Studies, University of the Philippines, Diliman, or UPSLIS for short. And I'm also one of the faculty members handling courses on archival studies in UPSLIS. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you the role, the vision, and the direction of my academic institution in serving various communities in the Philippines through education and training. It's such a pleasure to have this engagement with people who have the same passion, interest, and mission as ours. So this morning, I will be briefly discussing the state of archival education in the Philippines, specifically at the University of the Philippines, and how we are extending our responsibilities beyond the walls of the academia. So let me begin my discussion with the general themes being covered by the curricular offerings and professional discussions within the discipline of archival studies in the last decades. According to Tom Nesmith, one of the leading archival scholars and educators in the field, these keywords represent the recent developments in archiving and record keeping, both in thought and practice. These keywords or themes need to be taken into consideration when we revisit the basis of our practices as archivists, as record keepers, and even as conservators of documentary heritage. And at the same time, as we attempt to design new plans and programs that will institute further studies or higher learning for archivists. As regards the archival programs and curricular offerings and activities at the UP School of Library and Information Studies, or UPSLIS, most of the themes previously covered and mentioned are usually translated into the practices we're doing in the school. The courses are offered under the UPSLIS, the first and oldest library school in the country and in Southeast Asia. The first library science courses were offered in 1914 and were also the first to offer courses on archives and records management in the Philippines. The first courses on paleography, or study of ancient writings and historical manuscripts, and practical subjects on archives administration were offered in UP as early as 1954. The number of students, as well as the courses, instructors teaching the courses, dwindled in the succeeding years due to the lack of demand for archiving work from the industry and lack of full-time faculty members who would be teaching the courses. Eventually, the subsequent years, there was a constant increase in the demand for it due to the expansion of records, various information activities, developing information infrastructures, as well as the development of awareness among the members as well as potential members of the profession regarding the importance of records and preservation of archives. Since 2002 up to the present, we have instituted tracks containing archives and records management courses both in the undergraduate and graduate levels. The courses have been regularly updated to respond to the current needs of the field and contemporary issues and challenges related to archiving and record keeping. The courses in the undergraduate level are introductory courses or subjects covering the fundamental principles and practices in archives and records management. In the graduate level, the courses are somewhat the same as the ones being offered to the undergraduate students, except for additional subjects in Filipiniana or local Philippine archival materials, additional theory course, and philosophy and management of audiovisual archives. Alongside archives conservation, we also have courses on records management in general and Health Sciences Records Management. All the courses, both in the undergraduate and graduate levels, are just elective courses. Their degree is still library and information science, so majority of their courses, especially in the undergraduate level, are still focused on librarianship and information science. While the UPSLIS currently offers an archives and records management track or specialization under the wing of library and information science, there is still no separate academic degree on archives and records management in the country that will cater to those who would like to be in the archiving and record keeping profession and not in the librarianship profession. Since the archives and records management field has always been subsumed under LIS, or Library and Information Science, only introductory courses are being offered, especially in other schools in the Philippines, making the opportunity to expand the courses to meet the demands and needs of different communities a little bit limited. Most records practitioners resort to attending seasonal workshops and trainings conducted by different organizations and library schools. In this given situation, the Philippines is likewise facing problems related to the lack of systematic organization of records and preservation of our documentary heritage. While some would say that archives preservation problem is universal and is being confronted by many other countries in different generations and contexts, but this vital or still unsettled matter calls for a greater drive to design programs for our archives and records practitioners that will enable them to understand the nature and importance of the materials they are handling, the impact of their actions and decisions to our society, and how the society in turn shapes our judgments and visions for the things that we do and aim as archivists. As we see the evolution of the field of archiving, as well as the changing nature of the materials we are handling and the communities that we are serving, we at the UPSLIS see the need to continuously revisit the foundational principles and archival goals that we will be passing on to our students or future archivists. Through the years, we have been training current and future archivists and record keepers the standards and techniques in the proper and systematic preservation of archives. Being the keepers of important pieces of history, culture, and memory of society has been the traditional mission or the reason for being of archivists. While we are not leaving the doors of our archiving traditions, we're also moving towards the direction or continuous rediscovery and reinforcement of the fundamental archival principles that will let us and our students become more driven and highly engaged creators aside from being keepers. And now you may ask, creators of what? So the graduate students are not only provided with the practical lessons on archiving and preserving materials that are usually being taught in workshops and trainings, but they're also being provided with a solid conceptual foundation that helps the students bridge theory and practice. Through research engagement, they develop critical inquiry, analysis, and further reflection of the professional ethos and their societal roles as archivists. They also get exposed to the importance of scholarship, theory, and knowledge building, and expanding their networks through research inquiry. Aside from writing papers, we also provide them the space to communicate their research to their fellow students from different LES schools in the Philippines. So this is my class photo in 2019. These are the graduate students who were taking the archival studies course. And here's the student-led research colloquium that we held in 2019, which is a yearly activity that gives students the opportunity to present their research and also to encourage them to publish in our local academic journal and in international journals. So the graduate students of archival studies who are Master of Library and Information Science students, or MLIS, they presented their archival research through poster and paper presentations. The students employed different research methods in conducting archival research. So based on our discussions and their earlier courses on research methods, they're the ones who chose their topic, the research problems, the research locale or repository, and their methods. Many did historical research using documentary research and visited university and national agency archives, especially in Manila, as well as private archives such as independent filmmakers' archives containing AV materials. Some did archival ethnography, and this is quite interesting. An oral history in which they visited different communities, specifically those outside of the city or Manila area that have very interesting culture, history, and stories to tell. Online communities were also studied through digital ethnography to find out certain archival practices. But that was during the pre-pandemic. How about in the new normal setting wherein we are forced to adapt and adjust our life activities due to the pandemic? Aside from the health and economic sectors, education, I think we will all agree on this, has been greatly affected. So within this context, what have we been doing, or rather, what have we been creating in this context? So as educators, we make sure to create an open space for learning and sharing, not just for our students, but also for others who are interested in archival work. As teachers, we prioritize mindfulness, self-care, and well-being, especially of our students. We also ensure that there are student-centered services and the students have access to the learning materials and contents that they need, even without the traditional face-to-face meetings. It is also important to weigh what's important in terms of setting the course goals and assessments and the topics to be covered. Since it is almost impossible to cover everything in this online modality, there are pedagogical decision points that need to be addressed, such as whether the classes should be done synchronously or asynchronously or both. Adjustments in the learning outcomes or in more important topics and more usable applications of concepts will be discussed, as well as more personal and individualized approach to be done. So here are the students in one of my classes this current semester. I asked permission from them if it's fine to share our class photo with you, and they all agreed, and they would like to say hello, to extend their hello and greetings to all of you, and mabuhay. And these graduate students are from various backgrounds, not just from LAS, who are taking a course on archival studies this current semester. Some of them are from LAS, some of them are from fine arts, history, and curatorial studies. So we meet synchronously via Zoom once a week, and they may be coming from different backgrounds and places in the Philippines, but they are gathered in one virtual space, like a virtual community, and what binds them together is their shared interest in archiving, memory, and heritage preservation. And yeah, so we also continue our projects. We also continue our projects and outreach activities, even during this pandemic. We may not be able to go to different communities that need assistance, so we transformed our projects into online means, such as this community archiving in Sagada, a town in Cordillera Mountains in the Philippines, which is 300 kilometers away from Manila. So I and my graduate student, Ms. Grace Buenaventura, together with another lecturer from UPSLIS, Mr. Martin Julius Perez, held a remote community archives workshop via Zoom. So aside from some brief lectures on community archiving, we facilitated a series of focus group discussions with the locals and volunteers so that we could come up with a set of guidelines for their appraisal and organization of local cultural materials in Sagada, and to help them plan how to make the community archives sustainable. Also, since we realized that there is only a small number of local resources in archives and records available in the Philippines that can be used for learning and teaching, we created a talk show and took advantage of social media and streaming platforms to reach out to more people. The faculty members teaching archival studies, Professor Mary Grace Dolfo Barcelona, our current dean of the school, Professor Jonathan Isip, and Professor Bono Olgado, and some of our lecturers who are also archives practitioners, explored the different concepts and issues related to archives and records in a conversational manner. So it's really like a talk show. And all the episodes in a mix of English and Filipino are all available in our official YouTube account. So if you have the time, you can just check and visit our YouTube account. If there is for the record, so that was the previous slide, there is off the record. So this one is a student-led program that discusses definitions of basic archives and records terminologies, which are very helpful for beginners. So these are the students of another faculty member of Archival Studies in UPSLIS, Professor Jonathan Isip. Lastly, we try our best to create new opportunities. We may be facing a lot of difficulties these days, but we try to find a silver lining to create new opportunities for everyone. One of this is our proposal for the institution of Master of Arts in Archives and Records Management as a separate academic degree program under the UPSLIS. Once approved, it is going to be a 2-year program that will provide the students with strong theoretical and practical foundation, as well as significant experience on the effective, efficient, and most importantly, ethical management of records and archival materials. This proposal and the courses to be offered are based on the studies done on the experiences of the UPSLIS in the last decade, as well as the market demand survey in the Philippines that we did starting in 2018. Once approved, this is going to be the first academic program in the graduate level solely dedicated to archiving and record keeping in the Philippines and perhaps in the entire region. So from keepers to creators, what's next? The UPSLIS continues to bridge theory and practice. We envision an archival education emerging not only in the Philippines, but in the region that is more pluralistic, inclusive, liberatory, and open to new and progressive ideas. This will make our archivists not only experts in the technical aspects of archival work, but also embody the purpose, the principles, and the shifting paradigms of our profession as archivists. So with that, thank you so much. Maraming salamat po. And then if you have questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them during the question and answer portion. But if you have other questions after this session, you can just send me an email at ira@slis.upd.edu.ph. So thank you, and back to you, Mick.
Well, thank you very much, Iyra. Terrific. I've got some questions for you. Don't you worry. Okay, our next speaker is Eileen Bubu from Kiribati, and she is the Senior Archivist in the Kiribati National Library and Archives, the Ministry of Education. And it is absolutely brilliant that we have a voice from the Pacific coming to us. It can be forgotten, the Pacific, which is a great pity because some of the most wonderful stuff in the world lives there. Not just the beautiful islands and people, but also the cultures are fantastic. So please, Eileen, enlighten us.
So I can start now. Melody from Kiribati. Melody. Next. Okay, first of all, I would like to greet you all in my own language, Kannada Melody. Today I'm going to talk about the specific challenges, especially for the Kiribati National Archives. My presentation will talk about first my acknowledgements, the background of the Kiribati National Archives, what's its aim or goals, its services, activities, challenges, solutions, and then I will conclude the presentation. First of all, I would like to note my appreciation and gratitude for the support and help of the following executive councils of the SEAPAVAA and for those who support to the SEAPAVAA conference. Okay, this is the photo of the Kiribati National Archives. The Kiribati National Archives unit was established in 1976 as a unit within the Ministry of Education, Training and Culture. In 1977, it became a division within the Ministry of Education, Training and Culture. Its new headquarters in Vaidik was opened in the late 1978 and fully operational in 1979 as the National Library and Archives Division. As you can see in this photo, this building is from colonial times and not been renovated since then. The Kiribati National Archives Division occupies only the lower level. The Kiribati National Archives' aim or goals is to collect, preserve, and safeguard the historical information of Kiribati. Its basic services are: 1, permanent safe storage for valuable and important closed records, which are no longer required by governments in day-to-day business. Organization and preservation of records for consultation and research, both by government and the public. The third one is a special service for series of authorized academic research, much of which is likely to be conducted by overseas researchers. Since 2018, we start our activities by outreach and awareness to communities and for South Island for the purpose and services of the Kiribati National Archives. This time we visited communities and share or discuss with them the purpose of the archives and encourage them that the National Archives Office is a very important office for storing and preserving Kiribati historical information. We also did collecting of closed files and other valuable record from other ministries and South Island councils. Currently, we have been visited all South Islands to collect and deposit their closed files and other valuable records in the archives. The Kiribati National Archives collections. In hand, we have audio cassettes like Kiribati gospel songs, interviews from colonial times, and narrative stories. Video cassettes like Kiribati interventions, anniversary movies, traditional skills, and other movies related to Kiribati. And also we have genealogies, closed files from ministries, land records, church records, microfilms, photographs, and Kiribati history reading books. So this is our collections. For the MIAP audios, on the left corner, on the top left corner, we have in total 545 and are not yet digitized. The second photo is the audio, the VHS cassettes, and we have the number of 150 VHS films. The last photo are real films, and we have 14, all of them, all together. Our users, government officers and government business, general public, academic researchers. After our visit or our awareness to communities and South Islands, the number of customers or users daily are increased. On in the first photo, you can see the foreigners to research, like the National Geographic people. They came to the Kiribati National Archives for research. And the second photo and the third one are Kiribati citizens. The Kiribati National Archives has some challenges, such as staff have poor knowledge and skills on archiving and digitizing of audio-visual tapes. The second one, no equipment for Kiribati National Archives for digitizing of audio-visual tapes, Local suppliers are not selling or providing this equipment, and these tapes are since from colonial times till date. Local people are not aware of the importance of keeping audio-visual tapes, and for the meantime, they cannot access to audio-visual tapes we have because they need to be digitized. Due with the pandemic of COVID-19, this time all citizens are it was very hard for them to access to the records we have, for all records are in physical format. The building and facilities have limited space. Recording do not have security systems and environmental issues due to climate change. Also, the challenge we have is that there are no courses for archives offered in the region. From all the challenges we faced, we have some solutions to solve, or we are trying to find ways to solve the challenges we face in order for the Kiribati National Archives fully functioned and developed. So the first one is we are seeking aid funds from donors for trainings, workshops, and conferences online to attend for the capacity building of staff in archival work. The second one is ordering of equipment to use for digitizing of audio cassettes, video tapes to preserve and safeguard it. Currently, we're still looking for the quality and suitable one. The third one, we are seeking help from well-equipped archives for digitizing our audiovisual and other careers. We also seek for voluntary professional technical assistance in the archival field of audiovisual to work with staff for better improvement. Now this one he's still in progress, but because of the pandemic of COVID-19, we're still waiting for the borders to open, and then we try to work with or to find a technical assistant. The last one, the second last is we do the outreach to the public on Tarawa and South Islands, making awareness on the importance of the archives office, and also we are trying to find funds for a new building. In conclusion, we know that AV archiving is very important. So preserving and safeguarding our heritage through audio-visual, audio narrative, and stories need to be sustained for our traditional skills and histories for continuous use for future generation or for the people of Kiribati. Lastly, I'm going to play one of the audio, the face-to-face interview of John Smith, the first governor visit Kiribati in 1975. So this one we get it from the PPA last time. We worked with them, but now it stopped, so we can't digitize our audio tapes again.
Nilaka foi budget governor or Tawid budget leader of country.
Who is with us tonight. I should like on behalf of myself and my wife to thank everybody who's with us tonight for the wonderful entertainment that they have given us. For us, it is more than just one more bartering, because we know that everybody has gathered here and gone to the trouble to gather here this evening to wish us good luck and farewell. Both my wife and myself are very touched that you should have assembled to give us this send-off. It is indeed, as Ken Reuben said, a sadness to us that we were not able to visit each one of the islands in the Gilberts and in the Ellis group and to take personal leave of everybody on every island. I can assure everybody that we certainly would have done so had it been possible. I can only hope that there are in fact people from every island with us this evening, and that they will be able to take back with them when they visit their home islands the thanks and the good wishes of my wife and myself. Ten Reuben said on your behalf some very gracious words about what I might have been able to do for the colony. And he said that he was sorry that we were going after what seemed such a short time. The truth is that I'm getting a rather old man. And I had in fact expected to retire. At the time, I was asked if I would come to the Gilbert and Ellice Islands. I felt it a great honor to be asked to carry on longer and especially to come to this colony. I felt that there was perhaps certain work that I could do and that it was my duty to try to do it. I cannot hope, and never did hope, to be able to solve all the problems of the Gilbert and the Ellice Islands. I only hope that it may have been possible for me to have straightened one or two things which will make it easier for those who have that job to look and find those solutions. It's not for me to judge how good or how bad my work has been. But now I'm afraid the time has come when we will have to go, and I must retire. I can assure you all that both my wife and myself will take with us the most loving thoughts of the Gilbert and Ellice Islands. We have served over the years in a number of different countries, but nowhere have we met with such real, warm and genuine friendliness from all the people of all walks of life as we have on the Gilbert and Ellice Islands. And this is something that will stay for us for the rest of our lives as a very precious memory. We will remember all the feasts, all the presents, all the singing and the dancing that we've had on so many islands when we have felt that we have really been with the people and been with our friends. And now I should like to thank all those dancers and singers who came this evening to entertain us for the last time. I can assure them with an entertainment that we shall always remember. Finally, I should like to thank you both on behalf of myself and my wife for these parting gifts that you have given us. I feel that now, as we're now appropriately dressed for it, perhaps we ought to start this bartering again, and my wife and I ought to be doing the singing and the dancing. But I don't think we quite know the steps of the dances and the words of the songs well enough, so perhaps we'd better leave it to your imagination as to what a good entertainment it would be, rather than to demonstrate it. And now, finally, I would like to say to Ten Reuben, the members of my government, everybody else who is here tonight, and everybody throughout the colony, farewell. We will always remember you. May God bless this colony and its people, and may you always live in peace and prosperity. And thank you for making it such a wonderful place for us to have been able to live amongst you for 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, assuming we're all back on track, is there anything else you want to say, Eileen? I think you've been muted.
No, I'm finished.
You're finished? Good. that was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now, oh, and there's Klavier. Hi there. Good to see you in the flesh, so to speak. Okay, so now we have our Q&A question. We have two questions have come in, and like I said, I always have questions, but I'll read out the first one. I'm not sure if you can see the questions down the bottom as well. Do you have access to those? Anyway, the first one is from June Pok from, I assume that's the National Archive of Singapore, and I guess this goes to all of you. And June asks, I just completed my Master of Science Information Studies in the WKWSCI. However, none of the archival modules were offered. How then is the MSc Info Studies relevant for archivists today? So anyone like to tackle that one?
Well, yeah, I guess the question is intended for me.
It would seem so.
Yeah. So hi, June. Oh, we're actually from the same school, from Wikimi School of Communication and Information. So hello there. So yes, information studies is very much related to archival studies. And for your information, my background is also information studies. So because information studies is about the entire information cycle, from the creation to the use, dissemination, and after the preservation of information. So those functions actually that are being covered in information studies are very much parallel with the archival functions, starting from the appraisal, selection, and even description and arrangement, just like what had been discussed earlier by other two speakers. And these archival functions are very much parallel with all the information activities being involved as we create and use information of different formats, whether it's textual, whether it's electronic or digital. So yeah, so very much related to it.
Okay, thank you. The next question we have is from Aras Riyadi from Indonesia, I believe. And it's a question once again for Iyra.
Okay.
Iris writes, I am a graduate of Information and Library Science in Indonesia. How big are the opportunities of this major when combined with fields of conservation, restoration, and digitizing for art collections, archives, or cultural heritage, so that they become one name major? What about the international issues for that major today?
Oh, okay. So I think you have two questions here. How big is the opportunity for this, the major of LIS and archiving? Mm-hmm. There is a big opportunity, especially in our region, because not a lot of schools and universities in the region are offering library and information science education, more so for specializations on archiving and record keeping. Because if we do a survey on archival education in different countries, you will see that there are a lot of established institutions and academic institutions offering a separate degree on archival studies. And they usually are separate from library and information science. But of course, in other institutions, they are combined with LAS. So there's a big opportunity for that. And the second, also if it's combined with fields of conservation, yes, traditionally it is really being combined with conservation, especially for paper conservation, material conservation. But for built heritage conservation, that's another area, and I don't think it is the domain anymore of archiving or archival studies, because the preservation and restoration and conservation requirements for built heritage, like monuments, churches, what else? Different memory sites. They entail different standards compared to the documentary preservation that we're covering in archival studies, and of course conservation. And I think it's a good trajectory or a direction for someone who has these kinds of specializations. Because, for example, if you are specializing on conservation of textile conservation, for instance, so you can work in a museum, and at the same time, you can probably work in an archives holding different types of materials like paper-based, or perhaps you have like a costume collection in your archive. So I think having those kinds of specialization being put together would be a nice one. And that's the nice thing about archiving, because it's highly interdisciplinary. If you're from different fields, you will really appreciate what archival studies is.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have a question now from Quinton Turner for Klavier. And Quinton asks, Cantonese-speaking Chinese are a global resource. There's also a new generation of Cantonese speakers wanting to support projects to preserve Cantonese language media heritage. What are your options or the problems in using online crowdsourcing as a solution to dealing with the large-scale description challenges you outlined?
Okay, yeah, thank you for the question. So yeah, online crowdsourcing actually is one of the solutions to the problems I just raised. But I think one of the barriers is the copyright, like the audiovisual materials, the CCTV and also the ACV collection I was dealing with. They include some third-party content which prevents us for putting them online, the audiovisual materials. So without solving this copyright issue, it will be very difficult for us to open the collection to the general public, and then to do this kind of crowdsourcing crowdsourcing provision services. But I do believe there are a large group of Cantonese speakers, especially the young generation. They really want to support preserving the media heritage, especially in the Cantonese language. So the next step for the library or for the special collections at NYU might be they may hire another intern who can speak Cantonese, or even maybe connect with the Asian American community in New York City, so that more collaborations could be established. But unfortunately, last year the pandemic prevents all this from happening. So I hope when the campus will open again, and when all the works resume as normal as possible, more projects could be carried on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Quinton actually preempted my question anyway, so that was great. Okay, we have now a question from Joshua Na for Iyra again. Would the new proposed Master in Archives and Records Management be available for students outside of the Philippines?
Hi, Joshua. Hello. Yeah, the answer is yes. So once it has been approved by the university, we're actually under initial stages of getting it approved. You know, the layers of bureaucracy in university before we get the approval. Yes, we're open to international students, but of course, the rules for foreign students in UP will apply to our students, or to the incoming students outside of the Philippines. And the medium of instruction, if you will be asking, is English. So yeah, so if you're probably you're worried that you may have the proficiency for Filipino. No, it's not really a requirement. The medium of instruction is English, primarily English.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have a question from Ray Edmondson. Again, Iyra. As Eileen has just pointed out, the need for training in Kiribati, what are the opportunities for remote learning in the UP Archives course?
Oh, yes, we're very much open to that because as you can see in my presentation, we're really trying to reach out to more communities, not just in the Philippines, but, well, it would be good if outside of the Philippines, so we can offer trainings and even courses like formal education courses via remote learning. Actually, the initial plan was just to test the online learning modality during this pandemic. And that's what we have been doing now. So we're forced to really do it remotely. And yeah, one of the silver linings of this pandemic is that, yeah, we're actually testing it. And yes, we're very much open to it. So maybe you can send me an email, Aileen, if, yeah, we can discuss it.
Okay. Well, we don't have any other questions on our Q&A list at the moment, but I actually have a question for Eileen. Eileen, is there a program to collect, or at least to discover, relevant documents relating to Kiribati from all eras, from other parts of the world, such as New Zealand, Australia, the United States? Is there a program like that, either active or planned?
Sorry, can you repeat again the question?
Okay.
Slowly.
I'm just wondering if your archive has any plans to reach out to archives in other parts of the world, like New Zealand or Australia or America, and obtain copies, or at least understand what they may have in their collection that relates to Kiribati?
Yeah. We don't have this time a plan for that.
Okay.
But maybe we will try to. Yeah.
That would be good. Because I'm sure there are records out there that would be fascinating for you. Okay, well, just check the questions again. The questions seem to have dried up. Going, gone. Last chance, everybody out there, for talking to our host, our very knowledgeable presenters. We've still got a few minutes, but I guess we may close the session early unless there's any final words that that one of you or all three of you may wish to impart.
Actually, I have a question, or maybe I would like to hear some of the sharings from you guys. So what is the most challenging issue, or what is the most challenging part you find during community archiving in a remote mode? What do you find is the most difficult part? Yeah. Iyra.
Okay. Because the idea of community archiving is somewhat new to us. So what we're trying to do is we're adapting the actual principles of community archiving and teach them to different communities so that they could actually make or they could be the ones to manage their own archives, even without us. So we're the ones who would facilitate the training and also how to make their archives more sustainable. So I think the challenge, well, perhaps pre-pandemic, the challenge would always be, of course, budget, our support, grants. But during the pandemic, the challenge is, of course, the health protocols and, the danger that we cannot actually really go out and do this community archiving initiatives anymore. But what we do as an academic institution is that we try to find ways to address these challenges and make do with what we have. Because we're always seen as an academic institution offering formal degrees, formal education to people. But what we're trying to do as archival educators or teachers and archivists, of course, is that we're bringing down education from the ivory tower and reach out to other more communities so that they will finally realize that this is what archiving is. And this is what our community needs. So that's what we're trying to do as teachers of LAS and archival studies.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Actually, in my program at the Moving Image Archiving and Preservation, many of the students for so many years have been participating in community archiving as well. Especially we have a program called Audiovisual Preservation Exchange Program. In the past years, some of the programs they were held in Southeast Asia or Latin American countries. So really get engaged in those community archiving. But the pandemic last year, it prevents everything from happening. I am hoping to see more like actual human interaction in the future. I believe community archiving really needs the in-person interaction and show the hands-on training, hands-on skills.
Actually, UPSLIS is one of the recipients of community archiving initiatives by NYU MIAP in 2017. It was the SEAPAVAA in Manila during that time. I think Mick remembers that. There was a partnership between NYU and another foundation and UPSLIS. And it was a good experience. Yet, of course, we wanted to replicate that, but due to the pandemic, it's really difficult.
Okay, well, we've only got a couple of minutes to go. I think probably we will get a little bit of an early mark on this. I have no idea. What time is it around where you are? Is it lunchtime yet? Well, it just remains now to say thank you very much to all three of you for your presentations. They were enlightening as always. And I think it's fantastic. We've got such a spread of time zones going on in this as well, which... And I think actually just harking back to Linda's keynote yesterday about the environmental goodness of being able to meet like this while face-to-face is very nice. I think we can all have a little warm glow inside us that we've done our bit for a little while anyway to stop the terrible onslaught of climate change. So again, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the conference. And I'm hopefully people will send you lots and lots of feedback. I hope. And good luck with your projects.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, you all.